grandpa. Let's wander back into the past, then paint me the picture of long ago.
Welcome back to Hill Farms. I promised you we're going to talk about cruising to the South Pacific. So Uncle Bus was, I don't know, was it fortunate or unfortunate? I'm not sure which, but he might have dodged the Hurricane Forest, but he got called and
he got sent to combat anyway.
To the South Pacific. I guess there was no place to hide in World War II.
Yeah, there was no place for a
you were
young
going
man,
somewhere,
and,
so
he wasn't the type that would have hit anyway.
No, not by any
I
means.
mean, he was one of the toughest guys I ever know. He was a football player and played in college and so forth, and he was just a tough guy. And I always told the story about when he was going over. He told me sort of sheepishly. He said, I was always a little ashamed of it. He said on the way over, they made him, of course, they knew he had been an officer in the Guard. So they gave him this phony rank of major. And, going over, at first he was a sergeant, then they made him a major later. But anyway, on the way over, his job was, he was in command. He had to get everybody out of bed because they were all seasick. He said they were on little ships and they bounced around. And he said he had this one big guy that just didn't want to get out of bed. So he said, now look, you got to get out of bed. He said, you can't stay in any more in bed. So he get him out of bed, he drug him out. He said, Pfeiffer, when we get to shore, I'm going to knock the living daylights out of you. Well, Bush said to him, well, I'll accommodate you if that's what you want. But anyway, he got the guy out. And when they got to shore, he said, son of a gun. He said, here the guy comes. He wants to fight. So he said, I didn't really want to fight. But I said, okay, if that's what you want. So he said, we're out behind the building. He said, I'm always sort of sheepish, he said to me. I'm always sort of ashamed of it. He said, I smashed his nose and broke 2 of his ribs. So that's the kind of guy he was. He didn't look for trouble, but he wouldn't back down from it, you know.
Yeah,
so,
and that's the amazing thing, you know, a man from just such a small town, you get sent over there, you're crossing the sea, going off to some far off, and this took place all over.
Well,
this
then he
country.
was on an invasion. I won't go into the invasion part, but then he got taken as a liaison officer with the Philippine guerrillas. Now this is before MacArthur returned to the Philippines. He was injected into the region to organize Philippine guerrilla activity in the back country. So he was in there for about a year in the back country, and he was there 6 months. His dad was dead 6 months before he even got word that his father was dead. We had no idea whether he was alive or dead. Nobody knew because he was isolated. He was put in there, and it was just a small number of guys working among the guerrillas. So that's the type of job he had in the war.
I can still remember a story that he told about how when he was in that position, how he was hungry for an egg.
Right.
Remember that story? You want to tell him?
Right. Well, the Filipinos, he said he really liked the Filipinos. He always tells a story about how the Filipinos were going to treat the Japanese if they captured him. He said this one Filipino said, we'll give them all a fair trial and hang them by the neck till they're dead. He said, they gave them a fair trial, all right. But he said he had this great hunger for an egg. And he mentioned this to the Filipinos, that he wanted an egg. And he said they came with his egg, one egg. So he said he cracked his thing and he was making his egg. And he said, well, aren't you going to eat? That was the only egg they had. They somehow rustled up this one egg for him. And he was always proud of it. He really loved the Philippine people. I mean, the guys he worked with, he thought were the greatest people.
That just goes to show the appreciation that they had for what we were doing there, and also Uncle Bus, the way he interacted. Obviously, not everyone.
Well, he got along
the
quite
same,
well
so,
with them.
he was able to get along with a lot of people. So that's an interesting sidebar. But so then that was. Like so many other Americans, he was called to duty. He served his country,
came home, and went to work.
He did what he did, yeah. And during that period, I think from the farm standpoint, the Christmas trees, people still didn't have much, even though the Depression was officially over. They didn't. Have
he was
much.
still a poor guy, and so was his partner. She was even poorer than he was. It was she now because Joe Gerhardt had died of a brain tumor. He died in 1946. He never saw the trees harvested.
But he took care of the farm while Uncle Bus was gone, but never made it.
And then the next episode, of course, that come up was when they finally had a crop to harvest, there was quite a sad event happened. And we'll get into that with the next episode, I guess.
Yeah. So, how things could have been different, though, if Joe Gerhardt dies of a brain tumor, if Uncle Bus would have been killed in serving his country.
If Joe would have lived, I probably wouldn't have ever gotten into business. Because he and Bus probably would have worked together and they wouldn't have needed me. And as a young guy, I started working with him, and gradually Uncle Bus got to depend on me more and more, and that's how I got my way into the business.
But the other side to that is so Joe Gerhardt got sick. This was before you were in the picture. He got sick and passed away. If Uncle Bus would have been killed in World War II, that probably would have been the end of it, right there.
That probably would have been
the end of our story.
Yeah, that would have been the end, because there would have been nobody.
And unfortunately, that was the end for a lot of people's story, because at that time, when the man was killed, it was very difficult for his family to.
If Bus would have been
survive.
crippled, if he would have been injured or killed, and of course Joe having died, the tree farm probably would have just grown wild.
Yeah, and that's really the history of our farm. In 80 years, there were so many times where we came to a fork in the road, and it could have been the end. It would take in either direction, because if this would have happened or that would have happened, it was the end of the business. But
well, that's the way with most small businesses.
Well, it is, and to go this many generations to pass it on, it's very difficult to get from one generation to the second generation.
Well, generally the next generation doesn't want to do the sacrificing that's necessary.
Well, and they must have to do an awful lot of sacrifices.
They often live on the assets that the father built up or the relatives built up, and then they no longer have the desire to really dig into it and make it grow. So that takes us to really the end of World War II. We got to that point. So Uncle Bus comes home. Wanted to harvest his first crop. Ready to start getting the harvest. Yeah.
And that's where we'll pick up the next episode. So if you like what you're seeing here, we urge you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss. You'll get notification every time that we post. We hope you're enjoying this as much as our family's enjoying this. And
the next episode is one of the things that really was enough to knock anybody down, really.
Yeah, another one of those forks in the road that could have been, the end of it all. So
could have said I had enough of this.
So this is the common theme that constantly took place. Could have been the end, but persist and overcome. So we'll see you next episode. Thanks. We hope you enjoy our series, The History of Hill Farms. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen in the video, please post a question in the comments section, and we'll try to get back to you. Also, if there's anything you'd like to see in future episodes, please let us know. Thanks a lot.
Grandpa, tell me about the good old days.